but I'll turn it a little.
All right, all right, all right. We are live. Welcome to We Do It for the Culture video where our stories matter. We got a nice, interesting, and informative show for you today. We're going to be talking about the school to prison pipeline, as well as talking about the influx of new online schools that are popping up everywhere. It's bananas. So we're gonna tap into a little bit of all of that. In the meantime, we're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna dive right into We Do It for the Culture video. But before we do anything, can we just introduce ourselves? My name is Lover. Man and the Menace and Tina, could y'all please introduce yourselves to the lovely people, please?
Okay, Tina.
Oh, hi, I'm Tina. Yeah, I don't know. Teacher, parents on vacation. I'm not really sure what else about me.
We're gonna take it.
Me,
Wait, you gotta do Maine.
I know. I'm going on jumping in. Main the Menace, everyday dad, husband, brother, soul brother number one.
So
Welcome to We Do It for the Culture. For the culture.
Yes, and we will be right back, lovely folks. We're gonna take a short break, not a long, but a short one. So we'll be right back with you, lovely folks. All right.
All right, I'll be back in 2 seconds.
So,
Yes, yes, yes. We do it for the culture video where our stories matter. We're gonna be talking about the school to prison pipeline. Uh, Something that, for the most part, I would like to say, affects mostly the black community. And before we get into that, I just would like to introduce one of our, she is what you call a recurring guest on the show. Please welcome to the show, Miss LaShawn Shelton. Give it up for Miss LaShawn Shelton, the current guest on the
Hey
show.
y'all.
welcome back.
Thank you. What's going on?
Now, we brought Miss LaShawn to the show because her and Tina both are both teachers. They're both very familiar with this area here because they see it quite frequently. And so let's talk about it a little bit. Oh, yeah. So let's talk about it a little bit. The school to prison pipeline, which it's no it's a no brainer. We know that it mostly happens in the more black predominant areas, and it's basically a process in which students are pushed out of schools into prisons, uh, and the process is basically about discipline policies that are more harsh in the black communities. This school to prison pipeline is basically responsible for the large number of incarcerated youth that we have, not just youth, but adults in general, that we have in our prison systems. A lot of them don't graduate high school because of, again, a lot of, let's say, a lot of different reasons that go on in the community, whatever. So, Tina, you are a teacher yourself. When you think about the school to prison pipeline, how much of the 13th Amendment do you think it has to do with that?
So the school to prison pipeline sounds like a prescription, kind of like it's, teachers know. I mean, I've taught in affluent districts and like the inner cities. It's not like it's prescribed. It's not like we're sitting there like decisions are being made to directly have people end up in prison. The problem is that a few things. So schools are centralized usually in the neighborhoods of which they're serving, right? So you have neighborhoods that are poor neighborhoods, right? You have absentee landlords. You have high crime rates because people are in poverty and are suffering. So like a lot of it makes sense as to what's going on in the neighborhood. I just don't think that enough happens to kind of assist the situation, right? And I think some schools are trying. Some of them have programs that come in and like to try to do job training for things that are more realistic, right? Like things like manufacturing jobs that people who don't want to continue going to school can get, because you can do well in a manufacturing position if we can hold on to those. So it's just I hate to make it look like like teachers or administrators that we're not like, hey, you go to prison, you go to college, you go to technical school. It doesn't work that way. It's kind of like we're dealing with what's in front of us, and it's not very easy to do.
Right.
Well, LaShawn, what's your take on it?
I mean, if we look at the 13th Amendment and how we define slavery and what constitutes slavery, I think in 2020 right now, slavery is also a state of mind. Slavery could be a state of being, whether it's financial slavery, whether it's slavery through mindset. There's so many different ways that we can define the word slavery. So when I look at my capacity, I work in alternative setting. I am an alternative school teacher, and I also work with emotional support classrooms. I'm finding that more non-African American children are coming in those classrooms. So speaking to what Tina's talking about, right now, modern day slavery is starting to shift over classism, well. So if we have a kid that lives on the wrong side of the tracks, or a kid whose social economical thought process is not of the education system, here they are in alternative classes. Here they are with a botched IEP. Here they are with 504s that never get acknowledged. So yes, the school to prison pipeline is very real. We find that a lot of our kids that go to school in Title I areas, they're lacking the ability to get the same type of resources. And I'm finding that prior to working in Christina School District, I thought, oh wow, Title I classes, this is only for our Black and brown kids. But I'm finding that poor whites are in these Title I schools, and they too are not getting the iPads. They too aren't getting the textbooks. They too are missing out in the basic fundamental setting that's needed for them to acclimate in school. So then what ends up happening, they go from suspension to suspension, alternative education, straight to jail. And it starts in the 3rd or 4th grade. You're muted.
Your mic is low.
Well, here's the thing. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery, right? But I think it basically, the prison system basically picked up where the where the slavery left off, right? Right? Because they figured, okay, listen, if we can't, enslave them, we have to come up with another whole way of policy, whatever, of being able to, to take advantage of these black men, whatever, and get the use out of them. Okay, we can't have them picking cotton anymore, but we can have them making license plates. We can have them as working for these Fortune 500 companies behind the scenes, because there are so many different jobs and there are so many different occupations that these gentlemen in jail are required to do. And if you put them out here in a regular setting, they would never qualify for most of those jobs. They would never be able to even probably land them in the first place. But you put them in prison, and you put them in there as telemarketers. You put them in there as operators. You put them in there with all kind of occupations that they probably would never even be an opportunity to even land out here. And it's crazy how they do that. Man, when you look at some of our
look,
what was that?
Jim Crow. Listen, they have programs in those places that land them jobs when they come home. But it's all about being on this long ass list that you probably wouldn't get on it within 10 years and shit like that.
Yeah, but educationally they wouldn't qualify, right? Out here in the world, they're not going to
have
those jobs.
It depends, because they give you a Department of Labor card and all that when you're done. But you just got to get on that list in some spots. There is opportunities, but it depends on your crime too.
Right.
Is it heinous? You can have all the skills in the world. Nobody gonna want to hire you.
Man, we can't.
You got drugs in it.
Man, can you adjust your camera? We really can't see your face, man. We only see like half of your face, man.
Oh, sure.
But it also goes back to what we expect every one of our children, whether they're Title I or not, to go to college. Can we pitch other things besides college? We have kids who may be better off as realtors or forex traders or insurance curators. And I'm finding that even the kids that were in school that got left back, dropped out, GED, satellite school back in New York, they're doing better than some of the kids who were on honor roll, because they went and got into plumbing, they went and got into nutrition work, and now they retired, their parents are chilling. So how do we navigate our kids getting out of high school without going to jail? Right?
Yeah, but here's the thing though, LaShawn, I mean, we hear this all the time. Those programs, a lot of those programs don't exist anymore. Come on, we know that. A lot of those programs has been out of the school systems for years and years now. I mean, some of them
got to bring them back.
Okay,
right.
But that's going to require funding. Want to pay teachers now? You think they're going to fund that stuff if they don't want to pay the teachers now?
I don't know. It's an idea. I don't know. We said what we do. We could try to get it back. I don't know.
Yeah, but I know there are, like I said, in some states they will fund it. Some states have the money, and they don't mind funding. There's plenty of, like I know in Delaware, they have vocational schools where you can leave out of high school with a certificate. With a certificate, you're taking your curriculum classes, and you're also taking your certification classes at the same time. So when you get out of high school, and those vocational schools in Delaware, you leave out with a diploma and a certificate of something that you can start a career in. But like I said, a lot of states don't offer that no more.
Well, the technical high schools do, like the state-run tech high schools. They'll have the career tracks and stuff. I think they still do it.
Yeah, it's
you can do a trade for the whole 4 years.
Yeah, but here's the thing though. Even if you can't get it in the school, you could probably get some funding for vocational schooling. Like if you go to like they got all kind of vocational programs where you could go to Westchester Community College or Delta Community College, and you could take a trade, and they would sponsor you or they would pay for that. But you have to. There's a whole lot of paperwork you got to go through and to get that funding, and you got to qualify basically. But as far as them having them in the schools like they used to, no dice, no dice. So that's leaving these kids here with, and not to mention the extracurricular activities; those are all gone.
Yeah.
We used to be able to go to Don Bosco, CYP, places like that, whatever. We could go play basketball, play some ping pong afterwards. All kind of programs that you can get into after school, whatever. Those are all gone. They give nothing for the kids to be able to do after school no more. The after school programs are just strictly you come in, you do your homework, and you go home. That's it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, in
So
our town, they still got the Carver Center, kind of. I don't know if it's still there, but they got the Carver Center in Portchester still, right?
They do, but what do they do? I know they still have the conference. I'm not sure what they do there. I know you can go there for after school, and you could probably, like I said, get some tutoring done. You could probably get your homework done, but I'm not sure if they have anything to have you relieve that stress. Like I said, we could go to Don Bosco. We could play air hockey. We could play ping pong. We could play basketball.
Boxing programs.
We could do, after school. A lot of those after school programs are just basically gone. The funding is not there, and like I said, if you're in school, whatever, you definitely ain't got no BOCES no more in a lot of schools. So the school to prison pipeline is in full effect right now, and it's the best thing that you can do since slavery is to put these guys in a prison system, give them a job where they feel like they're doing something meaningful, but like I said, most cases they would never qualify for those jobs when they come out. Tina?
All right, I'm going to interject saying there has been no since slavery. Slavery has taken different forms since then, but it's still existing in one capacity or another. So the biggest issue for the Black community, as far as I'm understanding, is, or as far as I'm concerned, is that there's been no opportunity. There's been no real opportunity to build wealth, right? So you had, obviously, about like after slavery, it was just, all the Jim Crow laws, and then after that, it was just all government programs geared towards white people getting property and loans for businesses and blah 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 blah, and on and on and on. There was no opportunity for anyone else to build wealth, right? So we have like a small smattering of people who currently are building wealth, like celebrities, people who, actors, singers, whatever, but they're a teeny tiny percentage, but so this is it's just pervasive. So it just, you can't expect that communities can kind of rise themselves up. And this has always been this ideology in the United States, pulling yourselves up by your bootstraps. Like, you've just got to work harder. That's not okay. But if I'm not starting at ground level, I'm starting 5 feet under, you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, so what you're saying is that, I've just got to do better. And but the narrative that we were all sold was college was going to be the answer. But as time went on and I was teaching in the inner cities and whatever, I was just like, college isn't meant for everybody. First of all, it's expensive. Second of all, it's not everybody is a college student. Some people are good with their hands, or some people are good at building things, or some people are good at entrepreneurship, or some people are good, whatever it is. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be college. We need to open our minds to the idea that a lot of these other very well-paying professions are not coming out of Harvard. They're coming out of Mr. So-and-so's electric company.
But they don't exist anymore because
they do.
After the civil rights movement, right? They took all these factories and they moved them out to different countries, right? So you had people, even if you didn't have a college education, you can still become a welder. You can still become an electrician. You can still become a plumber. You had some type of skill. You had a factory job. You had these skills that you could take with you and go anywhere and make a decent living with. But now that's not the case anymore.
They was doing that before integration in schools.
Right. Exactly.
But we still have electricians.
Right. But this is what we have to do, though. Honestly, I always tell people, be the change that you're looking for, right? So we talk about prisoner pipeline. We talk about not having opportunities. We talk about this not being offered to us, but we have to look at what can we do to offer them. So, for example, how can we be the mentors? How can we be the peacemakers? How can we be that liaison between, fourth grade and up? Like, honestly, we have to catch these babies at third grade, because at third grade, that's when they start tracking data saying little Raheem is not doing what he needs to do in class. He's a troublemaker. He's starting fights. He's being, passive aggressive. He's showing sociopath type behaviors. And that's when these IEPs start getting built. And that's when these kids start getting labeled. So, for example, the school I taught, I was teaching in, right? I taught in a school where it was from kindergarten to 12th grade, alternative education. Kindergarten, where they're supposed to be scribbling and writing their name, to 12th grade. So what, pray tell, could a kindergarten student do to deserve to be an alternative education? They said because maybe mom, dad, grandmom, pop, whomever couldn't afford to put them in daycare. So they couldn't acclimate to that. Let me share, let me be your friend. Let's all sing Kumbaya together. So now this child starts out with an IEP stating that little Raheem or little Lisa, they're not able to acclimate and be able to integrate with their age range. So now you're looking at them in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. Now they're graduating from high school with every odd stacked against them. So how do we become mentors? How do we become school leaders? How do you find educators who understand the dynamics that maybe Raheem's mom is out there smoking? Maybe he hasn't seen his family.
But
Maybe there's no food or electricity.
You just said it though. A lot of these kids are unfairly and not probably being put into alternative schools. Not only that, they're being put into alternative classes. They're being labeled as ADHD. They're being labeled as saying that they have low attention spans. All these things are being done at if you ask me, at a time that's basically too early to even figure that stuff out. And you put them in these
absolutely
whatever. Come on now.
Right. But it's happening. And again, not to dismiss how the 13th Amendment actually treats us, but to add to that, we have to understand that it's not just African Americans. It's socioeconomical too. There was a kid in my classroom who was a white kid, and he too was labeled as passive aggressive with ADHD, and his parents couldn't afford a proper liaison, so they had to get one, a community advocate. But at the end of the day, this kid had to fight more than one war. The fact that his father was out there smoking, the fact that his grandmother was raising him. We have a lot of kids with elderly, I'm talking about in their 90s, guardians taking care of them. So now how do you fix that?
Well,
90s.
And their extra golden years when they're supposed to be home chilling, waiting for Jesus to call them home, but yet and still they're raising first graders and third graders and trying to figure out how to acclimate these children to an academic setting that's already stacked against them.
Well, I know speaking from firsthand that they tried to do that with me, but my mother was not having it. They was trying they was telling
Couldn't sit still, man.
Huh?
You couldn't sit still?
Man, I couldn't sit still. But still, they were trying to tell me I had ADHD, I had a short attention span, whatever.
They're not used to that.
All that passive aggressive.
I remember you, Calvin. You were all over the place.
You praying, right?
Not trying to hear it, and I'm thankful that she wasn't trying to hear it, because she was like, "Nah, listen, you know what I mean. My son doesn't have all these problems, whatever." And she defended me. I'm not sure if that was a good thing. I think it is, but sometimes parents do defend where they shouldn't defend, or they, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But I'm just glad to see defended at that time.
Well, actually, can I just say that I taught in a district which shall remain unspoken, because I want to forget I was ever in that district. But I taught in a district for 1 year, and what I found there was very different from what I was used to, right? So, we grew up in Port Chester. I taught in Bridgeport. I taught in New Haven. I taught in Trumbull, which is got money. So it was a varying range of different places that I had been. But this one particular district, which will be unnamed, it was unique because it was poor, but it was white. It was poor white district. And it was very different in the way poor white worked differently than poor black or Hispanic, which is what New Haven and Bridgeport were, right? So I found that it was the polar opposite. It was like people were assigning IEPs and 504s to students who absolutely did not need it because they wanted all the services. They wanted their kids to pass for doing nothing. They wanted all this other stuff. They were looking for these 504s and IEPs when these kids did not need them. Now on the other side, like in like New Haven and Bridgeport, we had, first of all, they're much larger districts, right? These districts are quite large. So of course your numbers are going to be higher, but you have kids who are dealing with, violence in their neighborhoods. They're dealing with, alcoholism and drug abuse because of the nature of living in cities. Not necessarily because they're black or brown or white or whatever they are, but because they live in a poor area. Now, the problem with, again, not being able to build wealth, who's in those poor areas? Black and brown people, right? So it feeds itself. It's a monster that feeds itself. If the answer is not looking at your kid's 6th grade teacher and saying, fix this, it's a systemic problem that has to have multiple answers.
Let me ask this question. So we know that it's the policies that are in place against disadvantaged kids, right? So let me ask this question: Do the schools profit off of that at all? When they put kids in these other classes in schools, whatever, is there an incentive at all?
It's not so much as an incentive. There's more government funding for it, of course, because you're looking at a child that's okay. A child on an IEP or 504 is extra money. But then the next part is alternative education, where I'm at. And there is a price tag that comes along with it per child. But then you have ICT, which is we can't even do anything with them in an alternative school setting, which comes in a price tag, depending on the state and district, of $20,000 to $80,000 per child. So those programs, they try to make them the last possible place for them to go. But at the end of the day, yes, there's funding for these children with IEPs and 504s, and Tina hit it on the head. These poor white districts that can't afford speech therapy, they can't afford different psychotropic type of evaluations and medications, but you slap them on an IEP 504, and instantaneously, like the Batman call, they get it.
So you're saying there's funding, but you're saying there's no incentive.
The incentive is you look like the glowing school that was able to fix this child without alternative education. And then when they come to us in alternative school, emotional support classroom settings, then it's like, oh my God, you fixed this child that was wayward, and now they come back.
Because you get extra support. I mean, like, yes. So every single child that walks into a school has a number attached to them of how much money their district pays for them. Whatever the district is, they all have their own number, right? So then you have a kid with a 504 or an IEP. Now that they have that number plus the additional services that they're allowed to be, which they should have. Nobody's arguing that. However, there's an additional funding, right? Because you can get an aid, you can get support, you can get psychologists. There's all these different things to support the student who needs additional supports, right? So that's more money. It's not like somebody's like throwing $500 at the principal and they're like, okay, run off and you're good. I mean, they have to pay for all these services,
right?
And you have to pay for transportation if this person's like in a different district but in their region. Like, there's a lot of elements to it. I don't think it's pound for pound. But they do get services and stuff, but the problem is that what I found when I was in that district was the abuse of the services. I feel like whenever I was in New Haven and Bridgeport, those families fought an IEP or 504. When I went to this district, they were fighting to get an IEP and a 504. I was just like, I don't even know.
So listen, tell me what. Hold on, guys. Let me ask you this question. What does? Because I hear you guys keep saying IEP. What does that mean? Is that an acronym of some sort?
individual education platform. They get like their own plan, individual education plan, and that's federal. Those are federal dollars. If you do not follow those guidelines, you will get shut down, fired, arrested, held accountable, the whole shebang.
Okay, so
Yes.
one of our guests is saying that special education, you have special education funded for $500 million.
$100 million.
Yes.
The Medicaid gives money for those services.
Yes, and that doesn't even include autism education, which is a new degree that's come up, because you have to understand, SPED is not how it was when we were growing up. Special education was, oh, there goes those bad kids, put them in that classroom and play cards. Right now, special education encompasses kids with autism. They no longer have Asperger's and diagnoses. So kids on an autism spectrum, right? So what ends up happening is when these children are on these IEPs or 504s, 504s a lot extra time for them to have test or to learn a specific subject matter, right? What happens is you have speech therapists, you have behavioral interventionists, you have cognitive therapists, you have so many different people that could come in that classroom. I was the only teacher, but there was 12 people in my classroom, because you have behavior, you have paras, you have one-on-one paras, you have the occupational therapist, you have the speech therapist, you have this person coming in. So it's not like a traditional classroom once they make it to that arena.
So the school,
Yes, but then there's also a push to have them in the main classroom. So
Yeah,
you're now,
inclusive.
there's a push to, because there's a social aspect to being in a classroom, right? So there's a we can't pick up everybody who's got an eye, and a 504 is mostly students with like ADHD are typically more 504. They don't have necessarily a learning disability, but they have more of a behavioral issue. So that's what 504s are. But so like now there was this big push that, okay, we can't separate them. We can't put them all in a room and like just teach them all separate. They need to be in mainstream classes with paras or assistants or whatever. And you were exposed, make sure you incorporate them, which makes sense socially, right? We all learn to socialize in school. Putting everybody in a room is not going to help them learn to like live in society. But all of this makes it difficult for people to kind of understand the whole system.
Right.
It's a difficult system.
Right. Like so
So
Calvin.
listen,
Mhm.
what was that?
so listen, damn, I just lost my train of I was trying to get it out quick, because I know everybody was ready to jump in. Everybody's thinking to say something. Right? So yeah, I'll come back.
One of our listeners, Freddie, said that in Virginia, it's only at the poor performing schools, though.
That's illegal. That's illegal.
Wait, what do you mean?
He says that the programs are only available at the poor performing schools.
But that's illegal, because again, if you have a child who's deaf or blind, which falls under those 13 categories, are you saying that only deaf and blind kids are poor? That's not the case. I can't remember all of them offhand, but I know autism falls under it, blindness falls under it, OHI, which is other health impaired, which can be, anything. It can be cancer. It could be any health implication that a child has. It could be visual. It could be traumatic brain injury. The child could be riding his bicycle, fell, cracked his skull open, and now he's under this, classification of SPED. Special needs is not necessarily defined as a poor need. Special needs or SPED, special education or SPED, those are children who have exceptionalities that falls under specified government guidelines. So if they're autistic, if they're deaf, if they have an intellectual disability, if there's a hearing or orthopedic issue, anything that needs a specialist to accompany them for them to be successful in school is needed.
Okay, so let me ask this, because you two are on the front line. Are there any new programs being implemented in the near future that can help try to rid this whole school to prison pipeline? Is there any programs that you guys see in the near future that's going to help to get the school to prison pipeline thing at a better situation, because this is looking bad. This has been going on for years and years and years, and I don't see any change in there. So I'm asking you guys, do you guys know of any programs that have been implemented to help with the school to prison pipeline? No?
I have a program. So my program, based on my book Prerequisite to Adulting, first off, they used to have JDG. And JDG, did you have JDG at your school?
What is that?
So JDG was called first jobs for Delaware grads, then it became jobs for American grads. And what that was, they worked with the name is escaping me.
I
But
don't even hear about Job Corps no more. I don't even hear nobody talking about that.
they have Job Corps, but
They
Job
still
Corps,
got Job Corps.
yeah, but it's being phased out. So what they were doing was working with oh my gosh, I had the name just now. So it'll come to me. But what happens is the parents have to advocate, the teachers have to advocate, the educational technicians have to educate and advocate. But like for example, with Prerequisite to Adulting, I'm working, fighting, and pushing to have those programs pushed into the school because it speaks to the very thing that you all were talking about before. Exactly, he does have a lawsuit, and those lawsuits are definitely upheld in a court of law because IEP is federal. It's not. You don't have a choice. Once a child presents with an exceptionality, you have to give it to them. But at the end of the day, we need more mentors. We need more teachers that look like our scholars. We need more people who advocate for these babies because they're not getting what they need to get. You have teachers who are fed up, teachers who need to retire, teachers who are not innovative, teachers that don't even understand different learning styles and techniques.
Okay, so let me, based on what you just said, I'm going to flip the switch just a little bit here, right? You got teachers who need to retire, people who are not being innovative, people who really just really behind the ball, right? Technology-wise, they may not be tech savvy, whatever the case may be. When you talk about all that, do you see the new influx of online schooling that's going on? And I think, of course, based on what happened with the COVID-19, whatever, teachers were always felt like they've been not respected, underpaid. And I think now, based on what happened with the COVID-19, a lot of teachers are saying, hey, wait a minute. I think I found me a new way to make more money by teaching online. Not even having a class, but just having maybe just tutoring or just having maybe one or two people, whatever. They found a new way to make money because every day on TV, I'm seeing a new online school that's popped up. That's crazy.
A great hustle.
Yeah, we started in the online school, so yeah.
Yeah, because like I said, teachers were always fighting for more pay, and this COVID-19 basically gave them it's like a light bulb of, hey, wait a minute, teaching these, doing this curriculum over the internet, whatever. They found like, listen, this is a lot easier. You're not dealing with the crowded classrooms no more. You can basically be selective in who you want as far as your pupils, right? So now they're finding new ways, to be more creative and to make a better income by having an online school. This is crazy. I think this is the new wave because I don't see it going back to the way it was no more. I can't see. I think I see classrooms as a thing of the past now. I really.
Right.
Well, I don't think we're done with classrooms. I think we probably will see more hybrid classrooms, but I don't think we're going to be done with classrooms, at least not just yet. But I'm sorry, I can't see. I don't know how to say your name. But the learning disabilities. Yes, that it is. Online learning is not built for people with learning disabilities. It's not built for people with bad Wi-Fi connections. It's not good for people who are not good with technology. It's not built for many people. I teach adult ed now, and you should have seen the shit show that this whole distance learning was. It was really crazy. It was crazy all over the place, crazy. And I was trying so hard to. Now, meanwhile, in my head, I need to make it interactive. I need to make it interesting. I need to make it like, I'm still like been born and bred as a teacher to like make sure my lessons are impactful and that they're entertaining and they're interactive and they're blah blah blah. So I built an entire system, and then I had people who couldn't handle it because they had Wi-Fi for like 8 minutes a day, or they had to work, trying to go to work or do all this stuff. And so it's just online learning is not meant for everyone. It's meant for what people think the average is.
Right. And can I speak to it really quick to what June and Najija is talking about as well as Shane? Our babies who present with IEPs and 504s totally lacked. These children on the spectrum, who have autism, who present with autism, they missed out. They didn't get anything they were supposed to get because, again, COVID-19. These kids needed one-on-one paras. These kids needed occupational therapists in order to finish a lesson. I have a child who needs a scribe to write what he has to say. He can verbalize it, he can recapitulate it, but he needs a scribe. So who's going to scribe for this child when you have a COVID-19 issue? These babies totally lack, not to mention that there are 8 learning styles that cannot be captured on online learning. You cannot have a kinesthetic learner learn appropriately online. You cannot have a visual or social or logistic or physical learner online. It's impossible. So now when you try to have interactive teaching on a Zoom and it's an inclusion class like Tina was talking about, now you have it where in a normal setting, the child in an inclusion classroom will have a para to address what it is that they're lacking or in need of. Now you have to stop the Zoom and address those situations with other children who don't present with that, which now pauses the lesson. It just became, like she said, a total shit show. It was the worst situation. And then on top of that, parents with multiple children, parents with no technology, parents who can't afford an iPad. It was ridiculously bad.
Well, one of our listeners said a lot of these parents don't know that these services should have been put in place according to their needs. But what I would say is, if I was a teacher, a forward-thinking teacher, and I'm seeing these new opportunities and ways that I could possibly take advantage of, as far as making money, whatever. And I would be creating an online school, not now, but right now. And I would be pitching it, marketing it, advertising, whatever, to try to get a few. I could basically scale out my whole.
Why would you do that?
Why wouldn't I do it?
Why would you?
Less stress and more money.
But who's going to teach those kids? So if you're a single parent household, who's going to make sure that child logs in and out? Who's going to provide internet service in the event that they can't afford it? And taking it a step further, when we're talking about prisoners from school to prison pipeline, what about that kid with the ankle bracelet like I have in my classroom who can't have certain online interaction and or services?
Man, send them to the library.
How? If they're homebound. How?
I'm not talking about the cat. I'm not talking about the cat with the beeper on his ankle.
But those are the kids that we're working with, though. In my classroom, you stupid. In my classroom, out of my 13 scholars, 4 may have an ankle bracelet. So what do I do with them?
Man, that's something.
What's the ankle bracelet got to do with internet access?
What happened?
So what's the ankle bracelet have to do with internet access?
You can't in Delaware. They can't have in Delaware. They can't be on social media and or Zoom lessons, and they cannot have certain whoever they have a contract with is who you have internet with. So if they have a contract with Verizon, and I have Comcast, and my kid had an ankle bracelet, I have to switch to Verizon because that's the system that they use. If they can't send that signal, your kid goes back to jail.
Wow.
What?
Yes.
That don't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I didn't want to take a break today because I know we started late, and I know that our guest, she has some things she has to do, so I wanted to keep on going, whatever. But I just want to thank you, LaShawn, for coming on the show. I think something that needed to be discussed. I wanted to take a second. And back home in my community, we lost a good one today. So I just wanted to take a minute to give my condolences and give a shout out to my boy Chops. Always good vibes, a good dude, always smiling. So I just want to give a shout out to my boy Chops and send my condolences out to his family. Uh,
Yeah, rest in peace to Chops, man.
give rest
Most
in
definitely.
peace.
That
A
that
good
hurt a lot.
We do it for the culture video where our stories matter. Uh, Please join us again next Wednesday. We'll be back here at 8 o'clock. We thank you for listening. We thank you for all those who chimed in. We thank you for all those. Shane Pratt talking about the beeper. We thank you for all those who chimed into the show today. Made the minutes. Tina, say peace out to the people. And
Peace, y'all. See y'all next week.
LaShawn, our guest, say goodbye to the people, LaShawn.
Nice
Thank
to
you
see
for
you,
having me
Sean.
back on. I miss you guys.
Yes, yes, yes. We do it for the culture video where our stories matter. Please join us again next Wednesday on the show at 8 o'clock, and we'll be giving you our topic for next week shortly. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate you.
Peace.
Peace.